Coming up on Naperville News 17, a racist post leads to hate crime charges and a greater community conversation. City Council gives the go-ahead to demolish Kraler Mansion, and a new arrival to Naperville bumps up the entertainment value. Hello everyone, I'm Kim Pierce. Thanks for joining us for this week's Naperville News. A freshman at Naperville Central High School has been charged with 2 counts of felony hate crime and 1 count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct for a racist post online. The 14-year-old white male student is accused of posting an ad on Craigslist with a photo of another student that read, "Slave for Sale, Naperville." That language, along with a caption that used another racial slur, fit the criteria for hate crime charges.
The comments that were made by the photo, we immediately started investigating it as a hate crime because it fit the criteria of the law. The criteria is some type of crime, such as disorderly conduct, which alarms and disturbs another person, and then the comments directly related to the individual's race.
A DuPage County judge ordered the accused youth to avoid the other teen outside of school, and in-school contact cannot be threatening. The accused teen was given an in-school suspension, and his next court appearance has been scheduled for December 18th. This comes on the heels of a different racial incident that occurred last month at a Naperville Buffalo Wild Wings. In that instance, a multiracial party of 18 said they were asked by staff to move tables as a regular who was racist did not want to sit by black people. In that case, no hate crime charges were filed. Marshall said, though unfortunate, these incidents are not indicative of Naperville overall.
Our community is a very caring and welcome community, and there are thousands of interactions among Naperville residents and businesses on a daily basis. And I don't want to minimize what has happened in those 3 incidents, but it's not reflective of our entire community as a whole.
Naperville Neighbors United already had a meeting planned for November 20th, which was conveniently timed for the community to air its thoughts on the incident. Naperville News 17's Casey Krajewski was there.
It was an emotional evening for those who attended the most recent Naperville Neighbors United meeting. In the wake of 2 racist incidents in Naperville within a month's time, organizers originally planned short discussions and breakout sessions to discuss implicit bias. That format changed when they opened up the floor to the public to share stories, emotions, and frustration at how racism has affected their lives.
This is emotional and mental harassment at the highest level. These are things that this child will carry for the rest of his life.
Speaker after speaker approached the microphone during the 2-hour meeting, but none was more powerful than Tamara Wallace, the mother of the black Naperville Central High School freshman who had his picture posted on Craigslist by a classmate with the caption, "Slave for Sale, Naperville."
I'm angry now. I'm really angry. I'm angry that this happened to my son. I'm angry that somebody that once used to be his friend did this. I'm angry that his mom and dad the child that did this, his mom and dad is suffering. I'm angry about all of this because it's unexplainable right now.
She told the audience she was frustrated by how the school district and media have handled the situation.
The school district needs to take crimes of this sort a little bit more serious. I feel like a message needs to be sent to all other people who have done this, contemplated on doing this, that racism should not be tolerated nowhere, and especially in Naperville.
Several community leaders were in the audience, including Mayor Steve Chirico and several members of City Council, and School District 203 Board President Kristen Fitzgerald. Councilman Benny White, who helped found the group earlier this year, ended the meeting by stating the importance of speaking out against racism.
We see when you say stuff and you stand up, you can spark change. We can spark change, but when you just let it go and you don't say anything, you just said it's okay.
For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
District 203 also held a conversation about race and implicit bias at their Focus 203 event. Naperville News 17's Christian Canizal shares some of those discussions.
Tears ran down the faces of some community members as hard but meaningful conversations were held at the Municipal Center for District 203's conversation about race and implicit bias. The morning session of the Focus 203 event drew a crowd about 100 to the roundtable discussions, which touched on topics like experiencing racism in Naperville and speaking about it with their families. Marla Baker, a resident of Naperville, says she attended Focus 203 because she wanted to share a racist incident her son went through and see the reaction of district officials.
They were not supported. There were no consequences that happened to the children. When my son was sent a picture of a letter of a noose, when he was sent pictures and told to die, when he was told to kill himself, when he was called the N-word over and over again.
Baker says she's currently seeking a counselor for her son. Another Naperville resident says sharing swords with one another can help with the burden people of color go through.
It's imperative to have conversations with my children, my wife, because for survival purpose, for resiliency, so when they face racism, bigotry, all this kind of thing, they don't know how to properly respond and not internalize it like this mother so greatly expressed.
Though the Focus 203 topic was chosen months earlier, it opened up a public chance to discuss the racist act, which took place at Naperville Central High School, where a white student posted an ad on Craigslist of a black student that read, quote, "Slave for sale, Naperville." Superintendent Dan Bridges spoke of the incident, saying racist acts have no place in District 203.
As an educational institution, we really are the center hub of this community. And so we have an important role, not only to educate our kids that racism and hatred don't have a place anywhere, that we must value the dignity and uniqueness of each individual. We're going to take on that responsibility.
The district said it has seen a spike in racial slurs this year and will continue to investigate why that is. For Naperville News 17, I'm Christian Canizal.
The district said they are committed to providing a safe and welcoming environment for all students. After the break, a milk house on the move for a lesson in history.
We live in a safe community, but not a crime-free community. If you see something, say something. Be a Naperville Crime Stopper.
I thought the interview was great. It helped increase exposure for my center in Naperville. It helped increase my exposure within my company. And above all, it was just great to talk to Liz about education, and we both share a similar passion about it.
Little Friends was recently denied the right to demolish the Kraler Mansion on its property by the Historic Preservation Commission. They appealed that decision to City Council, and Naperville News 17's Casey Krajewski has the outcome.
Naperville City Council gave Little Friends the go-ahead to demolish the Kraler Mansion at their most recent meeting. The dais voted 6-2 to overturn the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission and allow the nonprofit to demolish the more than 100-year-old building. However, Council also asked city staff to continue working with Little Friends and any interested developers to try to find ways around the mansion's demolition. That could include using some city funds, possibly from the Special Events and Cultural Amenities Fund, to restore the building and help Little Friends get full market value for its property.
We have presented data from a number of resources that show that keeping the old house on the land prevents this from happening.
Little Friends' original plan was to demolish all structures on its property and sell the land to facilitate a move to a new location in Warrenville. But the Historic Preservation Commission said the Kraler Mansion, once home to Naperville mayor and founder of Kraler Manufacturing Company Peter Kraler, is too historically significant.
It's a very significant piece of the historic district. To get rid of it would be the start to the end of the historic district.
But the majority of speakers at the meeting argued Little Friends' mission to help those with autism outweighs that significance, especially since Kraler only lived in the building for about 18 months. Those arguing for the nonprofit included Kraler's great-great-grandniece Mary Esser, who is also a former board member at Little Friends.
This house is not his legacy. Now, all of a sudden, the building is important. I'd venture to say that up until a year ago, when Little Friends announced their plans, the vast majority of Naperville citizens did not know or care that Peter's ex-wife's home existed.
Councilman John Crumman recused himself from the discussion as a board member at Shi Lin, which is potentially interested in acquiring the property. For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
Not all members of council, particularly Teresa Sullivan, agreed that city funds should be used to improve the privately owned building. Council also agreed to help fund 2 new buildings at Naperville Settlement. The Innovation Gateway and Agricultural Interpretive Center are 2 major capital projects planned for the museum. Naperville City Council approved funding $2.4 million of the $7.3 million total cost. The Innovation Gateway will serve as the new entrance to the museum and include modern amenities like a digital wall visitors can interact with. The Agricultural Interpretive Center will celebrate Naperville's farming community heritage and act as a science center at the museum. The city's contributions max out at 1/3 of the total project cost, and the city won't contribute anything to the improvements until the rest of the funds are acquired by the settlement. And Naperville Settlement just got a new addition that's small in size but big in history. Meet the Milk House. First built as part of Naperville's Maple Knoll Dairy Farm in the early 1900s, it found continued use by the Case family when they took ownership of the farm in the 1930s. John Case played an important part in farming both here in Naperville and on a wider scale. He helped unite dairy farms to create cooperative dairy farming. And a key component of keeping that dairy fresh before its final distribution was the Milk House. It's a history lesson the settlement can now both show and tell.
Naperville was very much a dairying community in its early history and even later into the 20th century. So it really speaks to a big part of that part of Naperville's farming history.
The Milk House came to the settlement by way of a truck, carefully moved from its location near I-88 after being donated by 10 of Case's grandchildren.
I think being able to tell John and Esther Case's story and now to be able to have their descendants be able to see this in place here is just such one of those important family narratives that we love to tell here at Naperville Settlement.
It's just one more piece in the growing number of farm artifacts on the museum's campus, and it will lend itself to a modern addition already in the works, the Agricultural Interpretive Center.
The importance of dairying to Naperville just cannot be understated. So for us to be offered this structure as a way of telling that part of Naperville's agricultural history and story and the story of its people is just, can't put a price tag on that.
The Milk House is the first building added to the settlement in 36 years. Visitors will be able to check it out starting this April. Naperville City staff recently wrapped up a presentation of the 2020 city budget. After going over Naperville's economic development and city service levels at the first budget meeting of the year, staff presented on public safety and financial stability. The police department proposed adding 4 full-time officers to create a 4-person strategic patrol unit. That team would focus on mental health calls, drug abuse, and FOID card compliance issues.
This team would also be able to respond to hotspot issues or crimes that pop up and trend for a specific period of time, so we could proactively address the issue before they turn into a long-term trend.
Council also heard presentations from the Naperville Public Library and Naperville Settlement, who discussed the many new events coming to the museum.
We have some exciting events coming for next year. As you know, we have Naperville Pride that will be coming to us. In a few weeks, we'll start Yuletide. Certainly, another of the events that we have coming for next year is Soul Fest and Naperville Salutes, which is coming around the 4th of July.
City Council will vote on the final 2020 city budget on December 3rd. City staff also said Naperville has the lowest household cost of living among comparable communities based on taxes and fees. Coming up, an expert in agriculture and autism pays a visit to Naperville students.
Edward Elmhurst Health presents this Healthy Driven Minute.
This time of year, the flu does become more prevalent than other times of the year, especially the winter months. We do see people coming in with runny nose, headaches, fevers, and chills, and we have to immediately suspect that they might have the flu. Unfortunately, in certain people, the flu can be deadly, and therefore it's important to get vaccinated to prevent it. It can also reduce the duration and the course of the illness and symptom severity. To stop the flu from spreading, the most important thing that we can do for one one another is to wash our hands constantly. If you can't wash your hands, to use a hand sanitizer. When we sneeze, we're sneezing or coughing into the crook of our arm. And if you are coughing, to make sure to wear a mask. If you're feeling like you're coming down with the symptoms of the flu, I highly encourage my patients to stay at home, take a sick day, or work from home.
For more information, visit eehealth.org.
The proposed Polo Club development has new updates, and residents had a chance to give their feedback. Developer D.R. Horton held an open house at the 95th Street Library, inviting the public to view and weigh in on the latest designs for the Polo Club development proposed near Route 59 and 119th Street. While many residents felt the proposal didn't do enough to address traffic concerns in an already congested place, some felt there were at least some improvements.
The fact that they eliminated Book Road is a fantastic step forward. We really had some issues with that. But again, the issues that we still have or that we still see is 119th Street. And the existing traffic flow on 119th Street is overwhelming. I mean, it really can't handle the capacity that's on it today. And so now we're thinking of putting a development with 480 units on top of that, and the concern is safety and traffic.
D.R. Horton has made several revisions to its original design in response to public feedback. Some changes in this iteration include reducing units from 500 to 480, eliminating the extension of Book Road, and widening and adding an additional turn lane and entry point on 119th Street. The updated plan will now go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review. The development received a split 4-4 vote when it appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission in February. Both School District 203 and 204 discussed their tentative tax levies at their board meetings. Taxpayers in District 203 could be looking at an additional 2 to 3% in 2020, and at 204 that number is just under 2%. District 203's chief financial officer asked the board to set its tax levy for roughly $250 million. District 204's asked board members to set theirs around $310 million. The levy accounts for equalized assessed valuation, consumer price index, and construction.
We were originally estimating $45 million for new construction. We've revised that estimate down to $35 million. For levy purposes, levy that we're presenting tonight would cover up to about $55 million worth of new construction.
The average District 203 homeowner of a $410,000 home would pay about $127 more in taxes with the new levy. A District 204 home with a value of $300,000 would see an increase of around $95.
The estimated increase in property taxes proceeds for District 204 is $10 million, of which $4.8 million comes from new property. Although we are not subject to the truth in taxation law this year, we are still intending to follow the process and hold a public hearing and a final adoption by the Board of Education.
District 203 and 204 will make a final decision on their tentative levies at their next board meetings. Naperville Central was recently visited by a leading authority on animal science. Dr. Temple Grandin is a professor at Colorado State University and world-renowned spokesperson for autism. She discussed her own experience with autism, her life's work with animals, and how specialized ways of thinking can be a strength.
What I have found is people want the magic thing. Okay, we're going to give every kid an iPad or whatever. That's going to replace good teaching. No, it doesn't. I just want to see students get out there and be whatever you can be.
At the end of her lecture, Grandin answered questions from the audience. It was a rare opportunity for all students in attendance, but especially for those taking animal science courses.
In my first class I ever took with my teacher, it was an animal science class, and we actually had the ability to watch the movie about Dr. Grandin and have basically an entire unit talking about her life and her experience as not just a woman in the cattle industry and the livestock industry, but also a person with autism in that field.
Grandin also stuck around to sign books and take pictures with students. In 2010, Grandin was named to the Time 100 list of the world's 100 most influential people in the Heroes category. The inaugural Naperville Fire Department Survivors Banquet gave community members who suffered cardiac arrest the opportunity to meet their rescuers. Our own Christian Kenizal tells us more.
Tears and hugs were shared as several community members who suffer from cardiac arrest this past year were able to meet with the men and women who helped save their lives. The first annual Survivors Banquet, hosted by the Naperville Fire Department, was an emotional evening at Mesa and Sabika. One Naperville resident who suffered a stroke last November was thankful to those who helped save his life.
There was a lot of things that had to line up just right for this to work, but I'm very grateful for the fire department in Naperville, the city of Naperville, to have the foresight to do this.
Several other Naperville residents met the rescuers and presented them with a life-saving award and a challenge coin on behalf of the Naperville Fire Department. A proud moment for Jim Anderson, who was actually one of the emergency personnel who helped Calhoun when he suffered cardiac arrest as a result of his stroke.
It means a lot. It's good to see that we're moving forward and not just staying stagnant. These changes are obviously positive, and it's affecting people's outcomes in a way that we haven't seen before.
Those changes that Anderson referred to is a new method Naperville emergency crews use when responding to a cardiac arrest call. The Advanced Cardiac Restoration Protocol also uses an electronic device for CPR.
It's a Zoll Auto Pulse, and what that does is we hook up the patient up to it, and it does chest compressions for us. And it's really great because it frees up our hands to do other skills in a timely fashion.
Since implementing their new method last November, the Naperville Fire Department has saved 12 lives, which is double the amount from 2016. Calhoun's wife says her husband wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fire department making the switch.
And I'm just really grateful because since that day in November, I've had a son graduate from college, my daughter got engaged, so there's been a lot of good family stuff, so happy to have my husband here.
The night ended fittingly with a hand for those who gave a helping one. For Naperville News 17, I'm Christian Kenizal.
The Naperville Fire Department said they hope to make the Survivors Banquet a yearly event. Up next, a super fan who's made jerseys his passion.
We tell everybody's stories big and small. Everybody's story matters to us, and it comes in a variety of shapes and sizes, and that's what makes it so special. We don't always need a big story. Sometimes we want a story that makes us laugh. Sometimes we want a story that we relate to. Sometimes we want to cry with that story. But more importantly, we want to hear the stories about our people in the community.
People spend, on average, a third of their time online watching videos. A single minute of video is worth 1.8 million words. Adding professional video to marketing emails can boost click-through rates by as much as 300%. So leverage the power of video. Consider NCTV 17's production services for your marketing needs. Contact us to begin the conversation today.
A unique thing about this jersey is the Cubs actually only wore this one time, and that was in a game in San Diego, and they never wore it again.
Superfan Rob Fascia has been collecting sports memorabilia for most of his life, including authentic jerseys.
First jersey I ever got was an authentic Cubs blue pullover road jersey of 84 and 89 when they went to the playoffs. That would have been the jersey they wore on the road, and the guy did the customization incorrectly. So I was comparing the jersey into magazine pictures, etc., and realizing how wrong it was.
That eye for detail led to a hobby that carries on to this day.
We're just approaching 700, so I'm right about 675 to 680. I have a couple coming in.
A number like that doesn't happen overnight, but once the pastime picked up, the passion and the collection kept growing with a goal in sight.
My goal, as I've established it over time, is to collect all the jerseys in hockey and baseball specifically from the time I was born to current day. That's my goal, is to have every jersey that a team wore by that point.
Of course, with years of collecting comes years of insight. From knowing how to spot an authentic jersey.
This is a Stadium Series authentic jersey, very rare to find. Again, you can tell because the C patches are chain stitched and sewn in. The logo is chain stitched and sewn in. If this was a replica, none of that would be chain stitched.
To learning the history of trends and designs throughout different sports, leagues, and divisions.
You know, really screams 80s was the San Diego Padres, the Taco Bell type jerseys, right? The orange, yellow, and brown. This is unfortunately the jersey. I don't like to bring it out too often because this is the jersey that was worn in '84 when they took out the Cubs in the last 3 games. So I try not to look at this jersey too much.
While many jerseys represent a favorite team or a bygone era, there are a select few that hold meaning in a more personal way.
Scott Schoenweis, who made his career as a starter and reliever on the 2002 Angels World Series team, he and I grew up together. I got married in April of the year 2000, and what he brought out was his rookie game jersey signed by all the 2000 Angels. So that was something that's very special to me.
A collection for fascia of both sports and personal history.
To me, the coolest thing would be is if in 100 years from now, one of the Hall of Fames or one of the teams was looking for an old-time jersey, couldn't find it, but yet it was sitting in my closet, and you could provide that team with something that meant something to them.
Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Ryan Scrid.
And if you have an idea for a sports story feature, you can let us know at newstips@nctv17.com. There's a new game in town that's got Naperville residents whirling away with excitement.
1, 2, 3, cut!
And with that, Whirlyball Naperville opened its doors. Whirlyball is loosely described as lacrosse played in bumper cars, and you don't need to be an athlete to play.
We'll teach you how to play. Your first game, you're going to learn how to drive, how to pick up the ball, but by the second and third games, you're really going to get into it and you're going to start having a lot of fun.
The 41,000 square foot location on Odyssey Court also offers a restaurant called the Pivot Room and 8 lanes of bowling. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can try hyper bowling, where you get multiplied points for banking it off the bumpers.
Our job is to help people have fun and create memorable experiences. That's what we want to strive for our guests.
Whirlyball is located right next to Topgolf in what the city has described as its developing entertainment district. And that's what's happening right here in your neighborhood, Naperville. We'll see you next week. Until then, you can catch up on local news by signing up for our NCTV 17 news update delivered right to your inbox Monday through Friday. Sign-up information is right on our website, nctv17.com.
This week's Naperville News 17 is brought to you in part by the following sponsors. This program is partially funded by a grant from the City of Naperville.